I did jokingly say when I posted a photo of this kit on Instagram, which was probably about, I don't know, a week into 2021, that this would be the last drum kit of this year that I'd buy, and that would be because in the space of about 6 weeks or so I picked up 3 drum kits, all second hand, and in fact not one of them newer than about 32 years old. So I have mentioned before, so in sort of in the space of 10 months really, maybe not even 10 months actually, I picked up 4 drum kits, and so I really do have like no space in here now. And in fact, it's most of my annoyance, as I may have said before, I got this room, the back room, sort of to the point where I was really quite happy with how it turned out, because I got everything up, sort of mounted up there and all that, and then I got a couple of bits mounted up there again, and I realised when I sort of shoved everything up on the shelves that the day I'd done all this, that I'd actually made enough space to have everything stacked away without having a kit on the floor. I thought that's fantastic. Gives me room for one more kit. And then of course I went and stuffed that up completely, didn't I? So now I've basically got the nice red BLX, if you've seen that, which is sat right next to where the camera is, on the floor again, but so is life. I'm not going to complain about my own stupidity. So the kit, as you'll have seen, is a Sonor Phonic, a Sonor Phonic Plus. Sorry, in well, I think it was a glass white. It's a wrap basically, and again, like I said, the finish is the kit. Sorry, is just over 30 years old. So unfortunately, as is the case with white drums, they do tend to yellow a little bit over time. And if anyone's ever seen a vintage white marine pearl, probably the best example I could ever think of. Really, I have a white marine pearl drum in the other room. Actually, it's a sort of a nicotine yellow colour, which unfortunately is just one of the things that happens. But this, I mean, the bass. So the 13 and the 14 toms actually were in really good condition. The 16's got a little bit of yellowing on it, and it just needs a little bit of clean up on the seam of the wrap, sort of particularly really at the top. It's very slightly come unglued at the top, but I've got a way of fixing that up, so that's not a problem if it needs to be fixed. The bass drum was a little bit more yellowed on, sort of probably about the top half of it. And I spent about 6 hours going over it, which was great fun, as you might imagine. Sitting there with various degrees of wet and dry paper, and sort of lightly sanding it down. But to be honest, I mean, I did put some carnauba wax on it as well. I think I need to basically try and buff it properly, which might get rid of some of the little lines. It's probably nothing that a camera would pick up. I can see a few of the lines when the light's sort of shining down on it. But to be honest, given that the finish was already sort of yellowed in places, it's still very slightly yellowed on the bottom, but you can't really see it, in just one little patch. But I tidied it up. It looks a lot more uniform now, and it looks a lot more uniform with the entire kit, which was actually the main thing. And I think I've got the option of going over and trying to sort of buff it a little bit more with mechanically buff it rather than do it by hand. Obviously mechanically buffing it would probably do a better job, or alternatively, if I really want to be funny about it, I could just pay for someone to rewrap it in the original sort of near enough colour. But to be honest, I'm not really that bothered, because at the end of the day, I mean, the shells are structurally are absolutely fantastic. The chrome work is good. There's no real issues with any of that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, it is a player kit. It's not something that I bought to sit on a shelf. Not that I really do that. I play these things. But it is a player's kit, and it's not sort of anything that's in pristine condition. It wasn't in pristine condition when it came to me. It I think it's in slightly better condition now after I've spent a little bit of time on cleaning it up. But you know, as I said, it's a player's kit, so that's that. The drums themselves, right? Now I've always known about the Sonor Phonic line. It's just one of those things I kind of grew up with knowing about, having sort of started to get into drums actually just before this kit was actually made, and so I've always known the name Sonor Phonic. It's just one of the things that's always been there. I think probably most famous exponent of these drums, for me anyway, was Nico McBrain, especially the Plus. The Sonor Phonic is you can basically get sort of more sort of traditional standardized toms. The Phonic Plus with the extra deep silly sizes, which is why the 13. I've got a floor tom that's actually smaller than this 13-inch rack tom. In fact, I genuinely have floor toms on legs that are smaller than the 14-inch rack tom, which is set up there behind the camera. But the sizes are on this kit 13 by 13, they're square sizes, the two rack toms. 13 by 13, 14 by 14, a 16 by 18, just for, like, you know, equating that for the North American contingent. Yes, it's an 18-inch deep floor tom, so you can't reverse that and say it's 18 by 16 because that will be wrong. And it's a 22 by 18-inch kick drum. No snare drum with this kit, but I've got the my good old. I'm going to try and swing this around and rig around. There you go, the old Artist Bronze on here, because it was probably the most appropriate out of the Sonor snares that I've got. You know, and a wonderful drum it is. I've done a separate video on that, so you can go and find that if you want. But the previous owner had headwise had CS clear dots on the top of the three toms, and clear ambassadors on the two rack toms, and a clear emperor, which is the first time I've come across that, although not the first time I've heard of it, on the bottom of the floor tom. You may think that that's a bit of a weird idea, but sounds like a drum. Actually did a video on, not quite on that very subject, but that was part of that video quite recently. This is the sort of third week of January in 2021, and it was a couple of weeks ago, if you wanted to go back and look at that. But it's an interesting thought. You know, sort of tightens up the sound a little bit less ring, because obviously you've got a slightly thicker head. I have actually got, I've now got UV1s on the top of the two toms here, and I've got a clear G1 on the bottom of the 13, and I have a clear G1 coming for the 16, but I'm not going to worry about that now. So that's actually still got the Emperor on it, which, to be honest, actually sounds fine to me, but I kind of like to have that more open ringy sound, and if it needs sort of killing a little bit, I'd rather do it myself instead of worrying about the head. I don't have any muffling on my toms. On this particular occasion though, I have got one drum tack at about the where are we? Probably about the 11 o'clock. Yeah, about 11 o'clock to, or certainly where I'm sat now. And there's actually not to funny enough, what I was jamming on this last night, and I realised that the actual floor tom was ringing because it was picking up the sound and the frequencies from the bass drum. So I've put the drum tack on there to actually mute that, rather than actually do anything else to do with the drum itself, which was the first time I think that's ever happened. But you know, so is life and all that. But I think overall, what are the quirks? So right, they've all got slotted tension rods. So that's a nice little throwback. Something I'd not come across, because I've not come across any Sonor drums from this era, or certainly not recently anyway. I know I've seen them, but is that well, I'll take a picture, you can have a look. the tension rods basically have got a slightly smooth face on one, well, I suppose side. It makes it a side really, doesn't it? And that helps with the tensioning, stops it from moving, because when you're twisting it, you can feel it gives you a little bit of resistance, and I think that would help on the instead of using a lug lock and stuff like that. So that was interesting to find that. You've got sort of triple flanged. I think they feel like 1.6 triple flanged hoops on the toms. You've got the sort of standard Sonor nut boxes and things. It does come. It came to me with a tom holder. There was no way I was ever going to use the toms like have them up here, and I can't play like that. So that's where Nico McBrain's kind of got me done there, because there's no way I could really ever play like that. So that is about the only way I think you can mount, unless you're Mike Bordin, of course. But I think he probably sat a little higher than I did. But yeah, I was never going to mount the toms on the bass drum. So actually the tom holder is down there, but it's never going to see the light of day in that bass drum while I'm playing it. Other interesting feature, I think for me, it's got like the original front head on the kick drum, but it also has ferromanganese metal hoops. Now, I am not really a fan of metal hoops on bass drums. I think they look hideous, and they just basically remind me of cheap low-end drum kits. And in fact, the first of the 3 kits, the trilogy of kits that I got over the last sort of few weeks, actually that came with metal hoops as well, and that was a much lower end kit compared to this one, and I swapped those out. I bought some second-hand wooden hoops on eBay for 20 quid, and I've swapped them out, and not only does the drum look better, it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable too. I obviously keep the hoops anyway, but there was something different about. I think for me really is metal hoops generally all look the same. And they've either just plain metal hoops, or they're metal hoops with the sort of routed out bit that you can stick the same. It's like the token gesture of putting the same coloured, a strip of the same coloured wrap in, so it kind of blends in. And I just think it looks tacky and horrible. But these hoops, I don't know what they do for the sound, but these hoops are like, these are like. These almost like visually chromed wood hoops when you look at them, and I think for this kit they actually look fine, and white on white hoops I think would look perfect, but you know what, this doesn't look wrong to me, and I quite dig that about it. So but the Phonic Plus, the Phonic line in general, 9-ply beech, they are quite thick shells, they are quite heavy shells, although that may not be a surprise when you're dealing with floor tom sized rack toms. So there's nothing about any of these drums that is light. Very much harkens back to the era when I grew up, when you kind of always heard that Sonor drums were really heavy. And that's where it came from, I think. Sonor drums. I mean, these things are really built like tanks, though, and very beautifully made they are too. But I mean, they're lovely shells, but they are just quite heavy. And I think they are very representative of the time. The Grand Star, their thick shells, maybe not quite as thick as those, but the Grand Star and the Art Star, thick shells. It was just something that went on at the time. The Pearl Custom Z as well, that came out around the same sort of time. Again, thick shells. Everyone was doing thicker shells at that point. In fact, even the BLX that came out, that was made roughly around the same time as this kit, that heavy shells as well. I mean, okay, the BLX has got the longer sort of single piece, one piece sort of single high tension lugs, but you know, arguably a little bit more metal work on there. But you know what? They're still heavy drums. They're big, heavy, sturdy drums. And if I can find it, I'll slap it in. I mean, I don't think this was. I think this was pre this, although I can't remember exactly when the Phonic line as a line came out. But I first started getting into drums in the mid 1980s, and I remember very clearly in Modern Drummer there was a fella squatting on a drum shell in front of a big shell bank of, you know, blank shells, and he was, and obviously you could see through the shell, and he was squatting on it to demonstrate just how sturdy Sonor's shells were. And you know what, I mean, having manhandled these a few times in the last week or so, yeah, you can totally see, and that was probably about a 12 or 13 inch shell as well. It wasn't a big shell that I remember. So you know, it's that, you know, these are big sturdy shells, and I think you know, they have a bit of a, I think, a reputation for being good drums, and you know what, not really a surprise. I don't really know what else to say on these. You know, I've kind of I think I have actually found that tuning them was I mean, I generally try and keep the tensionings sort of roughly the same top and bottom. That generally works for me, and I generally get a nice enough sort of resonant sound from the drums by using that sort of method. Now, in this particular instance, and I'm assuming that, you know, I didn't make any mistakes in that. Well, I mean, I didn't, but I'm just assuming that you know, all things being equal, I had to actually, I think it's therefore the shell. I actually had to tension the bottom head a little. Well, you know what? I did it last night when I was in here, and I seem to remember turning them a lot more than I would normally have turned them, just to sort of tweak it. So I think the top head for me it is actually, yeah, it's actually noticeable. I mean, I don't know if you're gonna. Picked that out very well, but there's definitely a higher pitch on the bottom head this time round, and you know, and a sort of lower one on the top. But that seems to work with these drums. I mean, the kick drum's still a little bit of a hit and miss. I've got a clear EMAD on the batter side, and I'm assuming it's the original head on the front. I think ordinarily with a bass drum of this size, I would try and get a little more sort of body from it. So I mean, I may, in practical terms, I've got I think I've probably got like I think it's like an EQ4 or something, black front head anyway, knocking around, so I may just stick a hole in that and put you know, re-logo in everything, and get slightly more rounded sound out of the kick drum. It sounds a little flat from where I'm sat, and when I do the sound file in a minute, will be the first time I've heard this drum recorded, or this kit recorded. I've been jamming on it for about a week or so, yeah, about a week I think. But I did come in here last night and change the heads completely. I had Remos on it, and it didn't kind of work out. So glad I got the UV ones on here instead. But I think that's it. So this is what it looks like, and this is what the kit sounds like. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again.